In this video, I'm going to be upgrading Darth Vader's Lego Mech using my own design to make something more functional and hopefully way cooler than the original. Let's start by taking a look at what we have to work with. Lego released a set of 3 mechs last year based on some popular characters from Star Wars. We got a mech based on a Stormtrooper, another one based on Boba Fett, and the one we're going to be redesigning today, which is based on Darth Vader. I think these mechs make for a fun toy, but I'm not really a huge fan of the designs because they're basically just supersized versions of the characters that they're based on. I made my own versions of these mechs in a video last year, and some turned out a little better than others. But ultimately, I think the concept for these isn't all that great. When it comes to Boba Fett and Darth Vader specifically, these characters have some unique ships that they own, and I think it would be way cooler to make mechs based on their ship designs instead of the character. Lego actually decided to do this themselves when they released Luke's X-Wing mech this year. This is the best mech from the collection by far, and I really like how they brought key design elements from the ship and applied it to the mech. The Star Wars mechs are really limited as far as the level of detail that can be included because of how small they are. To fix this issue, I want to size things up a little bit with my redesign so I can have more room to make improvements. Looking at the original Darth Vader mech, the concept they were going for comes across well, but at this size we miss out on some critical stuff. The arms don't bend at the elbows, the knees are fixed in place, and the hips don't rotate. Posability is really limited with these guys. I get why they do this because they're targeted at younger kids who don't want their toy to fall apart all the time while they're playing with it. I'm an adult though, so I think I'm just gonna go ahead and build something to the standard that I would prefer. Let's get started with my version of the mech. Looking at Darth Vader's TIE Advance, I'll be modifying this cockpit to make the main body of the mech. I stripped the ship down to its core structure and removed all the extra stuff that I don't want here. I think these Technic bricks on the side will make for some good arm connection points. I have an exposed Technic brick on the back for now, but we'll get that covered up later on. To get the angle right on the front of the ship, these slopes are placed sideways and connected to fill in the gaps. I'll build up the back area behind the cockpit and cover these holes with some wedge plates. I use some wedge bricks here to tie things together and taper the sides of the ship towards the middle. The rest of this level gets filled in with some bricks, and I use a number of other slopes to round everything out around the center of the body. I'll add these clips back in here at the top and finish off the core structure by adding a support bar to the front of the cockpit. To top this section off, I'll add the printed dish piece back on top and close off the front with the windshield. This area on the underside has plenty of studs for me to attach a waist to the mech. I'll be using this ratcheting circle plate thingy with a round brick on top of it. This part combination is great because it can rotate for posability, but it also has stopping points, so the mech won't spin unless I want it to. To create an attachment point for the legs, I'll connect these 2 Technic bricks with a pin and lock them together with a rounded piece on the bottom and a plate on top, giving me a solid center structure. I'll round things off with some inverted slopes and add on some ingots for armor. I'll connect these rotation joints, which will allow for articulation in different directions. After attaching the hips to the body, I can set things off to the side while I get to work on the legs. Starting with the thigh, I'll use these rounded slopes to hold the back of the leg together. I built this Technic axle into the end so I can add a ball joint connector to the left and right of the knee. Next, I'll add the rotation joint connector so we can attach the leg to the hip. I'll plate off the top with some snot bricks, and now I can add armor plating. I'll round out the front of the thigh with some slopes. On the inner thigh, I'll use a flat tile to keep things low profile, and I'll connect a grill tile for some detail. The outside of the thigh will be the bulkiest area, starting with some curved slopes and wedge plates to work around the shape of the ball joint connectors. On the underside, I'll connect some plates and a Technic pin, which will be held in place by wedge bricks on the other side. I'll cover the studs with an ingot and add one more Technic pin underneath so this armor plating stays in place without issues. Below the knee, I'll extend the leg further down with a Technic brick to add some more stud connections. These ball joints will sit on the outside of the top axle holder piece, and then I need to figure out a way to attach the ankle connector so it stays in place. I like to use brackets for these types of connections because you can build the whole way around the leg and it offers a great way to lock everything together. I'll build up the calf with some inverted slopes, and to stop the leg from separating, I can tie these parts together with a small mechanical looking circle plate thingy. For the outer parts of the legs, I'm using a pointy tile, grill plate, and ingots on both sides to solidify the structure, and then I'll finish off with the front of the shin. The bottom is tied together with a few slopes, and then I'll build some knee pads with these bulky rounded slopes to offer even more protection. The last thing we need here is a foot. I'm starting with a ball socket, and I'll build around this with a bunch of brackets to get the general shape of the internal structure. With that out of the way, I can add a bunch of details and some large wedge bricks to widen the surface area for more stability. I'll use some tall slopes to act as ankle stoppers so the mech doesn't fall over, and now we can assemble the leg. This attaches to the hip just like I had hoped, with lots of clearance around the joints so I can pose it in different stances later on. I mirrored the design to the other side, and now I can get to work on the arms. I'll use these rotation joints again because I love how sturdy they are. For the upper arm, I'll build out the internal structure with a couple of Technic bricks and work my way around the skeleton with some more brackets. I'll lock the underside together with a plate, and now my shoulder connection points are all set. I want this mech to look pretty buff, so I'll attach some large armor pieces to the bicep area and build around the outside of the arm with some curved slopes to make them more muscly. The shoulder joint can slot in here, and now I can build the forearm. With a couple of brackets and some more armor pieces, this is a pretty quick section to take care of. I left a Technic pin spot open for the wrist, and now I can move on to building the hand. I'm using a Technic brick in the center of the hand and covering things around the outside with curved slopes. I added some bar connection points for the fingers, and I'm using these big clip pieces to attach 3 fingers and a thumb. Now that all the pieces are built, I can connect the arm together, attach it to the shoulder, and get the other side connected as well. Vader's tie advance has this part that extends off the back, which I want to include in the mech, but I think it would make the back a little too heavy if I keep the design the same. To fix this issue, I'll just attach it like this to keep it closer to the center of gravity. So we'll still get the same idea, but it won't cause the mech to fall over. When I was trying to figure out what weapons to give to this mech, I decided to turn to the old Star Wars Transformers toys for some inspiration. The Darth Vader Transformer uses a tie advance wing as a shield, and I think this would be the perfect opportunity to replicate that idea, hopefully in a way that looks a little better. I think the wing design for this ship is great, but it's a little too big for me to just give it to the mech as a shield, so I need to build a downsized version. This was pretty easy to put together since I used the same internal structure as the original wing, but I brought everything in by a couple of studs to reduce the weight and size of things so it doesn't create any stability problems. I can attach the shield to the mech's forearm with a ratchet joint and a double-sided bar, which will allow for flexible articulation and posing. For the next weapon, I need something that will fit the size of this mech and work well together with the shield. Thankfully, LEGO released these buildable figures a while back, and they come with some appropriately sized accessories. I should be able to just steal this lightsaber from the buildable Darth Vader figure, and it will scale perfectly with the mech because of its height. The last thing to do is to attach some shoulder armor to cover up the vulnerable joints on the mech, and this build is complete. The final result really resembles Vader's tie advance, and I love how the accessories turned out too. I probably could have worked on the joints to find more ways to make this mech even more posable, but I think it's got some great range and I can do a lot more with it than some of my previous designs. Let me know what mechs I should upgrade next in the comment section down below, and click on the end screen now to watch some other mech videos. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good one.